Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm Hannah Kay, co-founder of Parallax Debates. Now, I don't need to tell you that we have two of the world's finest debaters with us on stage tonight, but I'm afraid I do have to let you know that Michael Gove is going to be leaving at around 7:30. So, to maximize Michael Gove time, I am going to hand straight over to our chair tonight. She is a former BBC News journalist and now Classic FM presenter. Please give a very warm welcome to Ritila Shah. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out on such a sort of warm and beguiling evening. I do think, switch off that mobile phone, guys. Phone's off. Have we found it? There's normally a switch on the side. Okay. Oh, no?
Now he really wants to make
Yes. Somebody's not admitting it's theirs. Yes, we're there. Fantastic. Well done. Well, I was going to say, I do think this is going to be a big and beautiful debate. Trump 2.0 will make the world a safer place. A reminder, we're talking about a president who's pursuing trade wars while actively trying to forge what some might call transactional peace deals. So whether it's the Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, or DRC and Rwanda. And for this work, he's made it plain that he believes he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. And I think we can say that President Trump is undoubtedly reshaping expectations and relationships. So will the world become safer in its Trump 2.0 incarnation, or perhaps less stable and predictable? Well, we've got a wonderful pair of panelists tonight. Arguing for the motion, Michael Gove, editor of The Spectator and a former cabinet minister who served in 5 departments. Goodness, Michael, including education and justice. I had lost count. An MP from 2005 to 2024, he was a leading figure in the Vote Leave campaign and during the 2016 Brexit referendum. Arguing against the motion, we have Mehdi Hasan, founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of the new media company Zeteo. He's also a Guardian columnist, host of Head to Head on Al Jazeera English, and he's the author of Win Every Argument, The Art of Debating, Persuading, and Public Speaking. Could be handy tonight. We're doing things a little differently this evening. Unlike our usual debates, we're not having a formal vote. But at the end of the evening, I will ask you for sort of a show of hands to see if you've been persuaded by the arguments that you've heard. And to continue with those differences a little bit, usually the speaker defending the motion speaks first in the debate, but in this instance, Michael's asked to go second. So I'm now going to ask Mehdi to take to the podium and explain why he doesn't think Trump 2.0 will make the world a safer place. Mehdi.
Ladies and gentlemen, the motion today that I'm opposing, and I hope you all are too, is Trump 2.0 will make the world a safer place. I'll be honest, it's a ridiculous motion. To believe this motion, you have to have been asleep for Trump 1.0. You have to have been in a literal coma between 2017 and 2021, when Donald Trump did more drone strikes than Barack Obama, tore up the Iran nuclear deal, withdrew from the INF arms control treaty, helped Saudi Arabia bomb and besiege Yemen, bombed Syria, dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan, and then did a friendly deal with the Taliban, heaped praise on Vladimir Putin, threatened North Korea with nuclear war, and then exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. The world was not a safer place under Trump 1.0. And to believe that Trump 2.0 will make the world a safer place, you also have to have been asleep since January 20th of this year. You have to have buried your head in the sand. Safer. Safer. Safer for whom? Not for the people of Iran, more than 1,000 of whom were killed in Israeli airstrikes, approved and blessed by Donald Trump as excellent. And it wasn't just the Israelis. Donald Trump, the guy who said he would be the anti-war president, the guy who said he would end the endless wars in the Middle East, bombed Iran himself last month in violation of both the UN Charter and the US Constitution. He blew up diplomatic negotiations. He failed to actually destroy all of the highly enriched uranium, which has now disappeared and is unaccounted for. And so as the former conservative foreign secretary, former leader of Michael's own party, William Hague, said the other week, Trump's bombing of Iran makes it, quote, more likely than it was before these events that we will wake up one morning 10 or 20 years from now to discover that Iran has a nuclear bomb. Well done, Mr. President. Trump will make the world safer. Safer for whom? Not for the people of Gaza, who continue to be massacred on a daily basis in their hundreds and thousands. Just 6 kids killed yesterday, lining up for water. Since Netanyahu violated Trump's ceasefire back in March, with Trump's blessing, over 6,000 Palestinians have been killed and 21,000 injured. Meanwhile, Trump has given the green light to the most far-right people in Israel to both starve the people of Gaza and ethnically cleanse the place. He just signed off on a $500 million arms deal with Israel, a government, a country that is led by a man who is wanted by the International Criminal Court. Trump will make the world safer. Safer for whom? Not for the people of Yemen, who Trump bombed in March, April, and May of this year, killing over 200 civilians. More than were killed in all American attacks on Yemen over the past 20 years, including 80 civilians in an oil refinery and 60 migrants trapped in a detention center, all dead, thanks to Donald Trump. But he'll make the world safer. Safer for whom? Not for the people of Ukraine, who Trump effectively abandoned since he berated their president in the Oval Office on live television, then kicked him out of the White House, then brought in a pause on intelligence sharing with Ukraine, which led to the deaths of hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers, dozens of Ukrainian civilians. Michael used to be a big supporter of Ukraine, but now he's here tonight defending Trump. The same Trump who just last month halted crucial arms shipments and munitions destined for Ukraine, desperately needed by Ukraine. Now he's saying, oh, well, he's going to change his mind. He's actually going to send the weapons. But he's all over the place. He's Trump. So, I don't know. I guess the Ukrainian people are on their own in this new, safer world brought about by Trump 2.0. The truth is that Trump is all too happy to deliver the keys to Kyiv and the property deeds to Gaza to Vladimir Putin and Benjamin Netanyahu. He's all too happy for foreign autocrats to take what they want by force. He is. I mean, you don't think Xi Jinping, who Trump calls a friend and says he has great chemistry with, you don't think Xi Jinping is watching what's happening in Ukraine and thinking Taiwan is just there for the taking? By the way, Trump, ever the mob boss, says Taiwan should pay the US protection money for its defense. So look, Trump 2.0's foreign policy is a recipe, I'm sorry to say, for more war, not more peace. This is a US president who has increased the military budget to a record high, who loves to cozy up to aggressive foreign dictators, while threatening his own democratic allies, not just Ukraine. He says he wants to annex Canada. He wants to invade Panama. He wants to conquer Greenland. Is this what a safer world looks like? The United States going to war with Denmark? And let's be clear, this is serious stuff. This isn't a joke. There are real-world consequences to Trump's bumbling belligerence, to his reckless rhetoric, to his unbelievable unstableness. You have Poland. Poland now considering getting nuclear weapons. You have South Korea considering getting nukes. You have Germany, God help us, thinking about nukes. All because Donald Trump has abandoned US allies, threatened US allies, and made the world a less safe place. More unstable, more chaotic, more dangerous. And this isn't just about war and peace. Trump is making the world a less safe place in myriad ways. He's undermined the global fight against climate change, which Michael has said in the past, Western countries have a moral responsibility to tackle. He appointed an anti-vaxxer, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to run his health department, who promptly announced a cut in US funding to the world's most important global vaccine alliance. Michael, in government during the pandemic, was an evangelist for vaccines. Trump let Elon Musk gut the US aid department and completely undermine the global fight against HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. Things that Michael fought against in government. The Lancet Medical Journal said last month that thanks to Trump's cuts to the US aid budget, we could see 14 million additional deaths over the next 5 years, including the deaths of over 4.5 million children under the age of 5. Is that your idea of safety? Is that anyone's idea of a safer world? More disease, more bombing, more global warming, more authoritarians and ethnic cleansers around the world, emboldened by the President of the United States? More chaos, more havoc, more turmoil? How could anyone seriously say Trump is making the world a safer place? Safer for whom? Safer for big oil and the arms industry? Sure. Safer for dictators and authoritarians? Absolutely. Safer for billionaires who want to dodge taxes? No doubt about it. But safer for ordinary civilians? No, not for ordinary civilians in places like Gaza City or Taipei or Kyiv. Not for journalists or dissidents or whistleblowers living under the rule of Trump's authoritarian pals in Pyongyang or Beijing or Moscow. Not for the climate, which continues to threaten our very existence on this planet. This motion feels like a parody. I mean, saying Donald Trump has made the world a safe place is like saying George Bush brought peace to Iraq, or Boris Johnson brought dignity to Downing Street. It's like saying, I don't know, Michael Gove got Brexit right. It's demonstrable bullshit, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the ranting, raving, bullying, berating, ignorant, insane Trump, you don't think of safety. You don't think that's the guy protecting the world. And to be honest, whatever Michael tells you tonight, he doesn't believe that either. Just last October, he said if he was an American, he would vote for Kamala Harris, not Donald Trump. And yet here he is tonight making the case for Trump, defending the indefensible, trying to make you all believe that the arsonist is really the firefighter, that the guy pouring gasoline, petrol on the flames of conflict in the Middle East and beyond, he's really pouring water. Come on. Are you kidding me? The world is not a safer place. You know it, I know it, Michael Gove knows it, Donald Trump knows it. And so I urge you all to reject this absurd, offensive, and laughable motion tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I beg to oppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mehdi. Michael Gove is now going to respond and argue why he thinks Trump 2.0 will make the world a safer place.
Rittler, Mehdi, comrades, thank you for coming to this MAGA rally, where we're dedicated to making argument great again. I loved listening to Mehdi. It was beautiful, the way in which he used the silver tongue and the petrol-fueled brain in order to denounce Donald Trump. But what was he denouncing Donald Trump for? He was denouncing Donald Trump for falling short of perfection. He was denouncing Donald Trump for being a little less good at being US president than Mehdi Hasan would undoubtedly be. But let's look not at perfection, not at Mehdi's platonic ideal of what a US president should be, but the actual uncomfortable facts, uncomfortable for Mehdi's case. The truth is that when Trump was president between 2016, in his first term, forgive me, America did not initiate and was not involved in any foreign wars for the first time in decades. The number of people who died globally as a result of conflicts during Trump's first term and in the first year of his second term has been lesser than in any of his Democrat presidential comparators. These are simple facts. They demonstrate that you don't need to admire Donald Trump's morality. I don't. You don't need him to be a role model for your children. I would never argue that he should be. You don't necessarily even need to have wanted to vote for him at the last presidential election. I wouldn't have. To recognize the reality of the type of president that he is. And what I'm inviting you to do is to put aside your prejudices, to not allow yourself to be seduced by the sheer torrential emotional power of Mehdi's rhetoric, but to look at the facts. Fact one that Mehdi didn't mention but Rittler did. Do you know the conflict which has consumed, by conservative estimates, broadly 5 million lives over the last couple of decades? It's the conflict in Africa between Rwanda and the forces it sponsors and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Now, we don't see it reported. We don't see marches going through the center of London to see that conflict end. We don't have that conflict leading the BBC's bulletins. I'll leave you to speculate as to why. But it has been the single most bloodthirsty conflict in all our adult lives. Who is the first American president who not only sought to end it, but concluded a peace deal just a couple of weeks ago with leaders from both Rwanda and the DRC? Donald Trump. Now, that peace deal may not last. That peace deal, of course, is inflected, as so many of America's activities have been, no matter who the president is, by consideration of resources and the economy. But nevertheless, if you're going to judge someone by their actions, you surely have to give a president, any president, credit if he expends prestige and diplomatic energy in seeking to end the bloodiest conflict on earth in all our lives. Similarly, whatever view you take on the war in Ukraine, and as Mehdi said, I am a supporter of Zelensky and a strong advocate of giving all the support that we can to the Ukrainian people, it is undeniably the case that the revealed preference of President Trump is to try to end this conflict sooner rather than later. Mehdi mentioned some of the acts that Trump has been responsible for, but he admitted that in the last 24 hours, Trump, in his exasperation with Putin's failure to come to the negotiating table, has threatened exemplary tariffs on Russia and has escalated the level of military support that he is giving to Ukraine. About time too, I think, but it is undeniably the case that Trump's approach towards what has been happening in Ukraine is driven by a sincere desire to end that conflict. Now, Mehdi also says, well, the tergiversations around Ukraine will hearten Xi Jinping. Trump is an inconstant ally. He is not someone that you can rely on to demonstrate that peace comes through strength, because actually he is showing weakness. And yet at the same time, the same Mehdi also argues you can't trust Trump because he's in Israel's pocket, because he shows himself willing to be a slavish follower of his ally in the Middle East. Well, Mehdi can't have it both ways. Trump cannot simultaneously be a threat to peace because he's an inconstant ally in one conflict, and a threat to peace because he's an over-eager ally in another. It might just be possible that the world of diplomacy and conflict is more complex than the beautiful moral simplicity of Mehdi's argument would lead you to believe. And talking about Iran, and talking about the Middle East, Mehdi and I disagree about much in the Middle East. But I'm sure that Mehdi would happily grant that those currently in power in Iran are not the cuddly figures. They are not the Swedes of the Middle East. Yeah, we'll come on to Israel. I knew.
There'll be time.
Well, I will come on to Israel in just a second. But the key thing about Iran is that we know that the people of Iran would like to see its regime reform. We know that the people of Iran yearn for democracy. And we also know that Iran was on the way to building a nuclear weapon, which its leaders have said would be used to eliminate Israel. You laugh. Do you know the reason why we know that Iran was seeking to build a nuclear weapon? Because Mehdi Hasan has just told us that its enriched uranium is now elsewhere and not in the bases that were bombed. We were told before that exercise would take place, that terrible things would be unleashed. They haven't been. What we've seen is the Iranian regime properly chastened, just as we'd previously seen Hezbollah properly chastened, just as we'd previously seen the Houthis having their teeth blunted. And the thing that links Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, and yes, Hamas, is their genocidal desire to eliminate the Israeli people, and in order to ensure that the work of Jew slaughter to which they are all dedicated can continue. It is only thanks to the men and women of the IDF, the Citizen Army, that Israel survives. It is only thanks to them that we can ensure that that state, as a democracy which respects property rights, which respects gay rights, and which respects Arab rights, can continue to flourish in the Middle East. And I know that there will be people in this audience, perhaps Mehdi as well, who may take a different view. But it is undeniably the case that all of us must recognize that if we are to have a safer and more secure world, then terrorism cannot pay. And Mehdi, he only had 11 minutes, did not actually mention that the reason that there is a conflict in Gaza is because Hamas launched, and their allies, launched a murderous attack.
Michael, your time is up. I'm going to ask you to
on
wrap
October
up.
the 7th?
Yes.
I thought I had 3 minutes left, but still. One of the reasons why it is important to affirm that is that it is only when one counters terror with the resolution that Donald Trump has shown that we know that security can be purchased not just for Israel and not just for the West, but for the whole world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whew, where to begin? Let's start with I can't have my cake and eat it. I love to have cake and eat it. Michael says, you can't believe two things at one time. I actually can. It's very simple. He says, you can't be a slavish follower of Israel and be all over the place elsewhere. Actually, you can. That is Donald Trump. When it comes to democratic allies, he throws them under the bus. When it comes to authoritarians, he loves them. Right? There's no inconsistency in that position.
But Israel's a democracy.
He has no, Netanyahu is an authoritarian leader.
Israel's a
Bolsonaro
democracy.
is an authoritarian leader. MBS is an authoritarian leader. Putin, Orban, we go down the list. He has a global alliance of authoritarian pals. And yes, they are like-minded. And so I don't think there's any inconsistency at all there. You did this line about in his first term, the classic line, no new wars in his first term. Well, first of all, he expanded every war he inherited from Barack Obama. And who cares? Because this is the second term, and he's already broken that line. He literally just started a new war. In the Middle East, he did something that no American president, not even George W. Bush did when Netanyahu asked him to, but Trump did. So he did start a new war. So that talking point, I'm not sure what the point of that was, other than to seduce the audience with your silver tongue. But the point about facts, let's talk about facts, for example. You mentioned, I'm glad you brought up the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. It was an important peace deal, and I'm happy to give credit to whatever role Trump played in that if he can find those countries on a map. But I would also point out that Congolese activists told CNN last week that they don't believe this deal will hold at all. They think it's a vague deal that was rushed over the line because Trump wants a Nobel Prize, so he signs whatever's put in front of him. And guess who's not part of that deal? Michael pointed out that it's between the DRC and Rwanda. The group that's not part of that deal is a group called M23, which is a rebel group doing much of the killing in this conflict. They're in a separate peace negotiation, which is being led by Qatar, which I'm sure Spectator doesn't want to give Qatar credit for that. But they're having a separate peace process. So let's see what happens. I hope you're right. If there is peace in the Congo, I promise you I will give Donald Trump for that. But it hasn't happened yet, and no sign of it because of one deal. And then you say, by the way, you threw in a little dig. You said, there are no marches in London or on the BBC for Congo. We can speculate as to why. We don't need to speculate. It's because we support Israel. We don't support Rwanda and Congo in the same way that we support Israel. That's why we're outraged about what Israel does. And last point. Fundamentally, Michael, all of your arguments revolve around trust me, it's happening, trust Trump. Yes, he's promised to go after Russia today. Let's see what he says tomorrow and the day after. The whole point why the world is less safe is because you have a reckless, impulsive, ignorant president who doesn't know what he's doing. And when you say everyone in the Middle East is chastened, it reminds me of that last big war you supported, Iraq, when we were told mission accomplished, and it all fell apart.
Michael, let's pick up with that last point that Mehdi made. Who can trust Trump? Can his allies trust Trump?
I think you just need to look at the consequences of his actions. So we don't need to make a window of his soul. We don't need to make a moral judgment on whether or not he's a good man. We merely need to look at the consequences of the actions that he's taken. So, for example, in his first term, he engineered the Abraham Accords, which meant that Israel concluded peace agreements with Bahrain, with the United Arab Emirates, with Morocco, all of which contributed to commerce, all of which contributed to a de-escalation of conflict, all of which contributed to making the world a safer place. As Mehdi acknowledged, the conflict which is currently scarring Africa may or may not be resolved as a result of this intervention. But the fact that he chose to intervene, I think, is significant in a way that no previous president had even attempted. So in that sense, the temptation in foreign affairs to make a moral judgment and hold up one individual against an objective standard which very, very few people can reach is a tempting one. But the question always is, which other leader do we think, certainly which other American president would we consider to have set an example that Donald Trump falls short of in seeking to ensure that the world is safer?
I can answer that question. A president who I was not a big fan of, but did something very good in his last year in office, which the UK government also supported. I believe you were in the government that supported him when he did it, which is Barack Obama and the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear agreement, which actually put Iran's nuclear program under inspection, under control. How much uranium were they allowed to enrich under Barack Obama's deal that the British government of Theresa May supported, or David Cameron, I think it would have been still then in 2015, 3.67% was the level of enrichment that the US State Department and the IEA signed off on under the Iran nuclear deal. Barack Obama did that deal. Donald Trump doesn't like Barack Obama, so as soon as he heard that Obama did that deal, he tore up the deal in 2018. His own defense secretary, James Mattis, said, don't do it, it's working. Some Israeli generals said, don't tear it up. Trump tore up that deal, and that's where we end up today. That's exactly why they have nuclear enrichment at 60%, 400 kilograms of it. The entire crisis in Iran was created by a reckless, impulsive Trump throwing away that document that Barack Obama and the British government worked on. You were in the government.
How can you blame America for
tore up
Iran
the deal.
enriching uranium?
Because there was a deal.
It's the choice of the Iranian leaders. It's the choice of people who, whose response to public displays of homosexuality is hanging gay men from cranes.
Michael, have you ever spoken out against anti-homosexual laws in Saudi Arabia or any other Gulf countries?
Yes.
But they're our allies. Why do you use this bogus argument? The British government allies perfectly fine with lots of repressive governments who treat gay people badly. You know it and I know.
I am more than happy to, whether it's Uganda or Saudi Arabia. But I'm merely pointing out
so we bombing Saudi Arabia?
The Iranian government that so many people are anxious to find excuses for.
Michael, should we bomb Saudi Arabia?
Also one.
Can we come back?
Should we bomb Saudi Arabia? It's a simple question.
No, well, Saudi Arabia has not said that it's intent on wiping out another
so you've
nation.
moved the goalpost. Just now you said it was about gay people. I said Saudi Arabia treats gay people badly. Now you've moved the goalpost. Pick one.
I'm pointing out the nature of the Iranian regime that you seem so anxious, Mehdi, to defend.
I've not said a word of defense of Iran. You defended the Saudi government's treatment. I didn't say a word about it.
I haven't defended the Saudi
government. They all heard
you
say it, move the goalpost.
I want to come back to this
question.
question.
I just find it instructive.
Michael,
so
Hang on,
no, Ritterly, just made a
draw your own conclusions, Caesar.
So hold on. William Hague, who was the leader of your party, the foreign secretary, wrote an article in the Times where you used to write, saying that this action will more likely lead to a bomb than anything else. Is he also an Iran stooge, Michael?
So that's the specific point I wanted to put to you, Michael. Are we in a position where nuclear proliferation is more likely rather than less
100%.
likely?
No.
That's just
and
flat
why?
wrong.
Why would you say that?
IEA disagrees with you.
Because action has been taken by Donald Trump to deal with a rogue regime
run
by ideological fanatics who wanted to eliminate.
Where's the uranium, Michael?
Who wanted to eliminate Israel.
But you could, Mehdi, you could argue.
Well, again, maybe your friends in the Tehran regime can tell you, because they won't tell me.
Wow. Wow. How are they my friends, Michael? Is it my name? My skin color?
I'm still waiting.
My religion? Which one is it?
I'm still waiting for any criticism of them.
I'm happy to criticize them. I think Iran is a country with a horrible human rights abuse and shouldn't be developing nuclear weapons, which the US government, by the way, of Trump said they are not developing nuclear weapons. You lied to the audience at the podium when you said they were developing nuclear weapons. Tulsi Gabbard said in March they're not developing nuclear weapons. I guess she's also an Iran stooge. Trump is also an Iran stooge. I would point out to you, very important point. There were 274 monitors from the IEA in Iran up until Trump struck Iran. They were looking at nuclear facilities every day. How many monitors are in there today? How many IEA monitors in Iran today, Michael? Zero. None. Trump's made the world less safe.
If you believe... I don't know whether it's naivety or misdirection, but if you believe that IAEA monitors are the way to ensure that Iran is not going to develop a nuclear weapon, when you've already acknowledged that the rate at which uranium was being enriched was significantly higher over the...
Because he tore up the deal, the guy you loved.
No. It's because of the intent of Iran. It is because of the intent of that
Mehdi,
regime.
you have to acknowledge that what we've seen, with or without Trump, is the limits of multilateral organizations.
How?
And actually, you've got a president who is willing to grasp difficult issues and take them in a direction of his choosing.
Rachel, I respect that you're the moderator and you have to ask that question, but you know very well, every non-proliferation expert agrees that those strikes did not help with non-proliferation. The IEA have come out and said it didn't help. And by the way, the uranium, the uranium is missing. You mean the former Dutch Prime Minister who sends text to Donald Trump in caps locks, sucking up to him like you do? Great, what a credible source you have there. Most nuclear experts look at the uranium missing and say, hold on, we had a deal where they were enriching at 3.67%, supported by David Cameron and Michael Gove, supported by Barack Obama. Trump tore it up. They started enriching more. Then we bombed them, so they hid the uranium. Given we bombed them, they're more likely to now want a nuclear weapon because they see North Korea, where Trump loves North Korea. They say, we want to be like North Korea.
One more question.
Trump loves North Korea. Do you love North Korea?
One more question to you, Michael.
Your
Now I'm
friends
going
in
to
Pyongyang.
open it to the floor, which is, Michael, if this is a president who wants to end wars, why do you think he treats his allies so inconstantly, so unpredictably? And where does that leave? If you were in government now, how would you handle President Trump?
Well, the first thing to say is, contrary to Mehdi's mischaracterization, when it comes to multilateral organizations that have kept the peace, I would prefer NATO over the IAEA any day. And the current Secretary General of NATO, I mean, I know that Mehdi might think that being Dutch Prime Minister is somehow a disabling
He's
factor.
not a non-proliferation expert, Michael, is my point. The IAEA chief is.
Well, NATO has more successfully kept the peace than the IAEA for decades.
Well, the IAEA
and I
was
think
right
that the
about Iraq
Secretary
and
General
Europe.
of NATO may know rather more about diplomacy in the military than either Mehdi or I, and it's his conclusion that the strike on Iran made the world safer. So
And if you could answer the
I merely
question,
point
if you
that
were in
out.
government now, how would you deal with a president who is not always very kind, to put it politely, to his allies?
In the same way as I would have treated President Obama or President Clinton or President Nixon or any US president. You have to recognize that an American president is naturally going to pursue the national interest of their own nation. And where someone is leading that country who is inclined to be in the historic tradition of an ally, work with them, but where you disagree, say so.
Okay, now I'm going to open it up to all of you for questions. I know there's lots of real passion out there. Please ask questions, don't want speeches. Michael has to go at 7:30, so if you've got a question specifically for him, that would be great. I'll begin with those. I'm going to start, I can see a couple of hands up on the right-hand side, so I'm going to start over here. I think you're going to go to the first one. There's a couple at the back there, and then we'll go round. And I know you guys, I will come to you up there as well. I'm going to take two, yes.
Thank you very much. My question is for Michael, who mentioned Iranian gays. You said that the Iranian regime treating them badly. Yes, very badly, even sometimes put them in the jail. And during this strike, Israeli government striked Iranian prisons. During the visit time, killed more than 50 persons in one go. Most of them, the families, and they were LGBTQ community. Yep. How killing gays are helping them? How you're mentioning Iranian gays now in this conversation?
Okay. And there's a question at the back there as well. If you can ask questions, that would be great. There's a gentleman with his hand up right there.
Mr. Gove, do you wish you'd properly prepared for this debate now?
Okay, I'm going to take one more. There's one over there on the right.
Mr. Gove, did I understand you correctly? You said we're not to pass judgment about Mr. Trump based on his morals, but solely based on the outcome of his actions. Is that now, with all the talk about shared value, is that now your view? Morality does a lot of heavy lifting here. Is it an irrelevance, in your opinion, whether a leader of a nation has respect for the rule of law and whether he is a man of integrity?
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Well, on those 3 points, on the first point, it is the case that the Iranian regime has done terrible things to its people, which is why almost every Iranian diaspora organization wants to see it go, and why there was such widespread support for what was, as Mehdi points out, an American assault against Iran, but one which was cheered on the streets by Iranian refugees worldwide. On the second point, I'm prepared for anything, even the criticism that comes from people who disagree with me profoundly. And on the third point, when we're thinking about foreign affairs and diplomacy, of course one can think about a moral dimension, but inevitably, when we're judging whether or not the world is a safer place, one has to look at consequences, events, and numbers rather than passing a moral judgment, because there are very, very few world leaders whom one would happily consider to be eligible either to be one's confessor or one's brother, or whom one would wish to see come home and marry into one's family. It's in the nature of world leaders that they operate, particularly when it comes to diplomacy and conflict, in a morally compromised world. What we therefore need to do is to look clearly at what the difficult alternatives are with which they are dealing, and also look at the consequences of their actions thereby.
Let me respond briefly to two things. One is, on the morality point, I actually agree with Michael. I don't think you can put the morality as a standard. I happen to think it is immoral, the way Donald Trump behaves on the international stage, when he says he refuses to call Putin a dictator but calls Zelensky a dictator. I have a problem with that. But I agree, it is about actions and consequences. Michael mentioned numbers. I agree, which is why I mentioned the numbers from Yemen, from Gaza, from Iran. I mean, the problem is, Michael likes to use Iran as a prop with which to beat his opponents, but he doesn't actually care about the Iranian people. He said the Iranian people were joyous about these attacks. Actually, the Iranian opposition movements were absolutely opposed to this. Narges Mohammadi, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, was in prison in Iran, came out and said no. Prominent Iranian dissidents said this is not the way we want to get freedom in our country, on the back of Israeli and American bombs, which killed multiple innocent Iranians. Residential apartment buildings blown up, car bombs going off. If you think that makes the world a safer place, then you really just don't value Iranian life. You don't value Palestinian life. That's the fundamental problem.
I'm going to look to this side of the room. I can see a couple of hands up there, one at the back, one in the middle-ish there towards the back. I'm waiting for the ushers to come over. Oh, okay, we're going to go up there. I will come back to you. There's a hand up there.
Thank you. Hi. Trump tore up the JCPOA agreement. And and that took years to build, an international coalition around the JCPOA. Because he tore that up, it had restrictions on how much enrichment Iran could undergo. Because of that, Iran, behind the scenes, started to enrich. And IAEA was still going in. And after this war, what's happened? IAEA are not allowed to go back in. And some sort of peace deal. I mean, they attacked Iran, right? Even before the peace had concluded. What's Trump actually achieved by bombing Iran?
All right. What's been achieved by bombing Iran? And I don't know if there's a usher at the bottom down here. Can we get to this side? Yeah, take a couple more. There's a lady with a, yes, there, and then one at the back, and then that's brilliant, yes.
Hi, question to Mehdi Hasan. Mr. Gove pointed out that the democratic leadership also made the world unsafe, caused many wars. And do you not think voting for Trump, even some Muslim groups voted, was a roll of a dice and hoping for something different?
Did you? We're going to take one more. There's just one just at the back there. Yes, just standing up. Thank you.
For either Michael or Mehdi, do you see Trump pushing NATO nations to spend more on defense spending as making the world a safer place or less safe? Thank you.
Okay. Michael, do you want to go first? Is more NATO spending making the world a safer place or a less safe place? And on the JCPO, what was the point? We ripped up this deal, the Iran nuclear deal. What was the point then of bombing Iran?
Well, I think a lot of confidence and a lot of faith is being placed in the JCPOA, but those most directly affected by the threat from Iran did not trust that the JCPOA would be an effective shield. It's certainly the case that most observers think that Iran's nuclear program, which of course was not a peaceful program, as Mehdi acknowledged, has been set back. And it is the case that, as I pointed out earlier, the Secretary General of NATO believes that the world is safer as a result. It is also the case that one of the reasons why the Secretary General of NATO believes the world is safer is that after, as the speaker in the audience points out, after many years of European governments failing to meet their commitments, at last they now are. Mehdi may think, if what I infer from what he said about Germany earlier, that it's a bad thing that Germany is spending more on defense. I think it is a good thing that European countries are spending more on defense, because that is a means of ensuring that the values that we share, our support for democracy,